This is Prophet FM. We are live with Frank Barbiere, or should I say Barbiere?
No. I can't live up to that French persona.
Sure, that's just a little reference to an off record conversation we were just having. So nobody's gonna think that's funny except for us, but that is what
or people might be confused, be like, "What? I thought that's how you do say it.
Yes.
What's with that e at the end?"
If you guys aren't familiar with Frank, you should be. You're ridiculous if you like comic books and you're not familiar with Frank. But you might recognize his name from Dark Horse's Solar Man of the Atom. He wrote some Superboy stuff for DC, Avengers World for Marvel, and of course the author of the amazingly great book Five Ghosts. And if you love comics, you really need to pick this book up if you haven't seen it. It's such a good book. And he's got Aftershocks the Revisionist coming up. So I appreciate you joining me today, Frank.
Thank you so much, man, and thank you for the kind intro. I feel like, John, you are one of the first people I actually hung out with at a Comic-Con and had a good time with. So we'll always share that special bond. Oh yeah, my brother was there. It was oh my God. That was the first San Diego con I think I ever went to. Me
too, absolutely. And I went by myself, and I literally, I was in a rough spot with jobs and stuff. I literally had $100, and I ate $5 footlongs at Subway the entire time.
Hey man, that's my life now. So last 3 years, but no, that was a great time, and it goes to show, and that's why I always tell people, you don't need to, I hate the whole networking aspect of all the entertainment arts, and people always being well, I'm not cool or don't want to hang out. It's I got into comics and I knew nobody, and just by being present and not being up anyone's ass or weird about anything, you just kind of hang out and see people all the time or meet people, and it can go like that. You don't have to be trying to make friends, because I know a lot of people myself included. I mean, I'm talkative, but I'm not a super sociable, charismatic person who wants to make friends with everyone. And I hate that misconception when people are breaking in that they have to kind of ham it up and be really good at making friends to get anywhere. I think comics is one of those places where a lot of times it's small enough that the work speaks for itself still. Sure. And I've always enjoyed that. It's not your dad has to be a famous director or anything to get in, or you have to be Stan Lee's nephew or anything like that.
I remember when we actually met, we did a signing for Arcana at the Arcana booth at the same time, and it was actually my second signing of the con. I don't know if you had done another one prior, but
was my book out? Maybe that was the second year I wrote. Did I have trades, or did I just have little printouts? I can't. Sorry that I'm asking you to remember a shared memory for both of us right now.
Well, I feel like the book was out because I have the book, so I don't know if I got it. I don't know if I got Divine Intervention that year or if I got it the year afterwards.
But I think it was out that year, because I think the first year I went to the con, I was hoping it would be out, but it didn't print in time. So that was the year, if I was actually kind of signing, I think I was a little more into it. To trail off weirdly.
Sure. Well, and I had done a signing prior. I wrote the book. For those of you guys who don't know, we haven't really talked about it on the podcast too much. I think we mentioned it maybe a little bit in the Vito Tomaselli podcast, but actually I wrote a book called The Dead Cell for Arcana, and
which is awesome.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But Frank and I had done a signing with somebody prior to signing with you. And I'm not gonna put the guy on blast here, and I know that's what the wrestling community loves, that when he just blasts people. But he really I'm kind of an antisocial kind of person at first, and the guy was for lack of a better, I'm just gonna be honest, he was kind of a tool, and he was just he just was being ridiculous. He was cutting me off. People are coming up to buy my book, and they were talking to me about my book, and he'd hop in and he'd be like, "Well, what about my book?" You know
fuck.
He
That's
literally would do that.
And there are those people everywhere all the time too.
Sure, and I was like, come on, man, don't be rude, man. But he was going on and on, and so then
was he just trying to make a buck, man?
No, he didn't even apologize. I don't think he realized how ridiculous he was being at the time. But So yeah. So anyway, then I ended up sitting with you, and your brother Lewis was there, and Lewis is the man, by the way. I hope is he doing good?
Yeah, he's good. He's I wish I hung out with him more. I mean, I don't think I mentioned, but I live in Georgia now. So I lived in New York for a few years, but now I moved down to Savannah, Georgia, where I'm really happy because it's not New York City.
Oh, sure.
It's warm all the time. Like, even in winter, I think it like got to like 50 degrees. So like I was just like, I don't know what month it is anymore because I think it's always always warmer months. But yeah, no, he's doing good. He's still up in Jersey. He works for Apple, so he's living the computer dream.
That's awesome, man. When you talk to him, if he doesn't hear this, let him know that we only hung out one weekend, and I still think he's the man.
Well, he definitely won't hear this because he doesn't give a fuck about me. But I will tell him we need to reconvene at a show someday, or just come eat some barbecue.
That'd be awesome. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I get sidetracked a lot. That's one of my worst problems, probably.
I'm also will feed into that, so.
But yeah, I ended up sitting with you, and I want to say, I don't know if I sat with him later, but I'm pretty sure that it was me, you, and Nick.
Yeah, Nick was a super good dude.
Yeah, and then we ended up, we just kind of clicked, man, and we ended up chatting it up in the creator section where you get like, it's like, at San Diego Comic-Con, they have like a section for like celebrities that's like guarded and stuff by like dudes in suits with like serious looking microphone and like the earpieces and stuff. And then they have like a creator lounge for like people that maybe like are not really well known or anything like that, you know. It's like you're not going to see the movie stars hanging out in there, but you will see like the dudes with neck beards and fedoras. And, so we were in there slurping up our free lemonade and crackers or whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever like plebe snacks they had left over that I was just like, please give them to me.
But yeah, that was man, that's one of my legitimate most favorite moments of creating comic books or anything like that. It was just that whole experience. So I'm really excited to have you on today, man. And it's awesome. I appreciate you doing this.
No problem. Like I said, it's funny like how those times stick out because people can be such tools, for lack of a better term, and like I don't know, comics is such like a small like thing where it's almost like a shared suffering. Like everyone who's there like knows how like unforgiving it can be and like how all the bad parts basically. I mean, I love making comics, I love what I do, but like it's one of those things where you only really get it if you do it. So it's always nice to meet like people on the level who aren't like convinced they're celebrities or like sure. I don't want to say too successful, but you know, like people lose perspective real fast. Sometimes it's nice to just be real with people who do the same thing.
Oh, right. Absolutely. And it's good too to know, that there's people out there that kind of know your struggle to tell, like a deeper story because, for the people that have read Five Ghosts, they know, and they should know at least, that you're not just the standard, like, superhero, regurgitated kind of storyteller. And luckily, I mean, you've had the opportunity to write on superhero books, for DC and Marvel, which is amazing. I mean, I don't think anybody does this, on any level and doesn't want to write for one of those two companies, and you've been able to do both, so that's amazing. But just to do something creator owned, and to try and tell like a deeper story, like a layered story, you got to put like a level of yourself out there that a lot of people don't put out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and thank you so much. I mean, for the compliment, but like I'm glad it shows that we cared because it is so hard, and I feel like everyone gets to that point where like you start out just wanting to make something cool, but then it becomes like, oh well, I also kind of want to make something good, and of course you can never tell from the onset if it's going to click. But I feel like Five Ghosts has been the thing that really people just get exactly what it is. And that's a cool experience. And I feel like with that book especially, I was so horrified to be like compared to like Alan Moore, because there's a clear like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen vibe on it, or just Neil Gaiman, who tends to be more literary, because ours is such more of a like fun action comic, just kind of with that stuff bubbling like beneath it, and like a little bit of like homage and literary reference. And I was so worried that people were going to be really like overcritical because our book had like kind of literary characters in it, and be like, oh, this guy's not like as good as like Neil Gaiman. And like every now and then I'll see that and be like, yeah, no shit. Like the dude's probably been professionally writing longer than I've been alive. So let's all chill out. And that's fine. But yeah, I mean, it's a book, we care about, and is stuff I do care about in there, and stuff I'm like passionate and nerdy about. And I feel like that's really when it clicked for me in my own work, to see like, oh, well, if I really am writing about more like thematic or like kind of below the surface stuff that matters to me, like it shows so much in the work. And I feel like that's my big thing. Like I like to teach writing whatever I can. And, that's the biggest thing I push, that if you don't care about this like intensely, no one else is. And you need to I think part of becoming a writer is really learning about the things you are passionate about and trying to get them into your work without either coming off as preachy or like too on the nose with it. And it's always a balance, but yeah, there's always definite fear when someone checks out that book, Five Ghosts, and I think is like expecting it to be smarter than it is. Sometimes it's horrifying to me, because I just hate that it's so easy as a consumer of anything. And I mean, I've done it myself, and after creating a lot, I try not to, but like to make baseline judgments about whoever's creating the book when you don't know anything about them, just their work.
Well, and I think too, you mentioned it, so I'm going to kind of go back. I think that the worst thing that somebody can do, and this you mentioned being compared to Neil Gaiman. I got a lot of that when the Dead Cell came out. People were like, "Oh, well, this definitely seems like it's influenced by Neil Gaiman." And I was like, "No." I was like, "Please don't." I was like, "Please don't like say that, because then people are going to read it and they're going to have this expectation." And
it throws you into that weight class, right?
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I'm not trying to fucking shame the most like celebrated and prolific authors of our time with my first comic. Like, let's chill out.
Well, the thing about Neil Gaiman, like his books are like, one, just from a comic standpoint, he's literally he's got to be, like, in my mind, one of the top 5 comic writers of all time.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's
and it carries over, like his non-graphic books are amazing. Like, the guy's such an amazing storyteller. And for anybody, like, you're really doing them a disservice by throwing his name in the ring with them, because it's, I mean, how many people can even compare to that, you know? And
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I feel like I spent a lot of my time wrongly, like, getting caught up on criticism and like what people think and what people will say about work. And I feel like this year really has been me, like, just moving past all of that and concerned much more with the work. But like, the thing that's just so funny is sometimes I want to be like, well, what is the like thing you're comparing all work to? Like, and let's be real, with like 90% of comic book reviewers, it's like Watchmen. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to fucking write Watchmen. Like, so let's lower the bar, like, just a tiny bit, or I'm not going to write Sandman either. Like, especially right now. So like, let's take those off the playing field and just like try to assess this for what it is. Or people who fucking like hate Indiana Jones or hate pulp or hate like violence or hate action and read my book are like, oh, this sucks. It's like, yo, like, have the like intelligence to understand this isn't for you. Like, and I don't believe in telling anyone what they can or can't enjoy, but I know, like, I don't particularly love musicals. I'm not going to go see a musical and walk out and be like, that fucking sucked, because, like, duh, like, I don't think that because I don't like it. Like, it's just, I think there's really a forced bit of the reviewer to like review everything and not kind of speak about their bias, just try to make baseline judgments on work that's not necessarily speaking to their tastes. And like, I feel like even stuff I dislike, like I can recognize craft behind it or see like the people making it really cared. And I don't know, that's a little bit of my like, let's all be happy and celebrate art. But you know what I mean? It's like, I really get caught up a lot on the fact that like in in America especially, like people think by criticizing you are smart, and to just like something is to be like a blind sheep. And I see it every time I walk out of a movie. I hear people be like, well, it's like, oh, don't, like, just enjoy what you saw. Like, you didn't have to think about your shit life for 2 hours. Chill out. Like, and I mean, talk about it, but don't just like try to tear stuff down because you feel like it's gonna like take you up a peg.
Well, sure, and let's, we can use a recent example of this, Batman v Superman, for instance. I saw Batman v Superman. I love Batman. I'm a DC guy myself, and I love like pre-New 52 DC, where like the superheroes were still like 100% pure. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's my preference. And to each his own. But that's what I love. And now with Batman v Superman, I did not think that Batman v Superman was the greatest movie of all time. I felt like they tried to jam a lot of stuff in there. I felt like they rushed some stuff, and they just threw it in just for the sake of getting it in. And I know that they have, the Justice League thing that they're building to, and they have to get certain stuff in there to get, just to cross-reference, But at the end of the day, like, I had fun watching Batman v Superman. And I saw a lot of cool shit that I was happy to finally see in movies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's like a big part of like, yeah, holy shit, let's not hold it up next to Citizen Kane and like fine art. And I also will never apologize for the superhero genre or the medium of comics, because it can be just as valid, but just like, let's all understand what we're seeing. We're seeing a large budget, fun action movie, and like when you come in there and say like, this isn't Hamlet, it's like, well, fuck you. Like, don't. And I'm not saying to sell stuff short, but it's just understanding a lot more of kind of like what goes into making something, and like trying to find the stuff you enjoy and be entertained, instead of like thinking that we're all doing a disservice to the human race by not making like society advancing art with every attempt we make. I mean, I feel like I heard Bendis like say it once in an interview, not like I'm his friend, but like I read an interview and he was like, yeah, sometimes like I just write like a comic that I want people to honestly read on the toilet for 5 minutes when they get home from work and enjoy and laugh at, and not like have to think about how much their life sucks for 10 minutes. Like,
sure.
It's like, and when people try to tear that apart in an analytical sense, like, yeah, they're not going to find like something amazing, but if like someone like was happy for even a minute reading it, like I did my job. And I feel like I identify a lot more with that. And yeah, we all want to be seen as like smart. Yeah, we all want to seem like cool and relevant and doing meaningful work, but like it's also entertainment, and we can lean into that and have fun. Like,
well, sure. And I mean, at the end of the day,
that's making me up my soapbox.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, too, isn't reading, the majority of comic books. I mean, isn't the point of them to kind of forget about the real world for a little bit and live in a world where like anything is possible, where like people can fly and like,
yeah,
exactly. Men can fight superheroes,
Yeah, definitely in like that superhero, like kind of mythic form, like, and also like to be good to each other, to like aspire to be better, and like things like that even in darker movies are encoded. And then when people walk out of that, like, and just start like slandering each other and being dicks, I'm like, how could we get so far from like the real meat of this, that you walk out of here wanting to be a dick, not a better person?
Sure. And let me ask you this, because we kind of talked about it some, and I don't want to focus too much on the negative aspect of the world.
No, and I don't mean to sound embittered. I just like, this is the stuff that's always going in the back of my brain.
No, not at all. And I just know sometimes, like with me, like for instance, when we talked about wrestling was my full-time job for a while, and like at the end of my wrestling career, I became like just completely obsessed with like people talking shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's no one can prepare you for that. The minute you do any art that is consumed like by someone who's not you, like it's such a weird thing. So I can completely understand that.
Well, I remember like when my comic book came out, I was just like, I just like prepared myself because at wrestling, like I literally was killing myself. Like, I mean, you know, I had post-concussive syndrome.
Yeah, there's that physicality to it. That's
sure. And on the independents, it's not like the WWE where they want you to be safe. And in the independents, like you have like the best way to get over is to be like the hardest hitting, the most fearsome, like the head droppingest person. And so like I literally I fractured my neck on a Saturday. I took the next weekend off, and then the next Friday I wrestled in this tournament called the King of the Death Matches with a fractured neck, right?
And yeah, that is significantly more hardcore than anything a comics person can say. So go on.
Well, and then I remember that there were people, like the vast majority of people were like, "Oh, this is awesome. This guy's this guy's that. He really busted his ass." But then there was like those two guys on the internet that were like on every message board, and they're like, "Fuck this guy. He's out of shape. He could barely move." Well, yeah, I could barely move. I had a broken friggin' neck, man. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. Like, no, it's so easy to just judge and not know what anyone's going through, like in anything. And again, I've been there, and like. Even with Marvel and DC stuff, I remember like I'd get a comic from like a writer I really liked and not like it and be like, how could they fuck this up so badly? And like I have now fucked things up badly and understand how quickly things can go off the rails for like many reasons. It's like, oh, like I was definitely being a douche when I was like talking shit on, and thankfully I never did it on the internet. I think I was a little too early for that, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's just, you never know. And I think that's the thing you can only ever learn, like when you become like jump the fence to that other side of the conversation.
Well, absolutely. And I remember when my comic book came out, like I really tried to prepare myself. I was like, all right, no matter what happens, no matter how good it is, no matter, cause I think we had this conversation before. Like, I literally write everything like 300 times. Like, I just write it over and over and over and over and over. Because, you know, whether it was good or it sucked, I'm very, very detail oriented. And I would like to think that when you read something of mine, and I think the Dead Cell like is a good example. Is when you read it, the first time you read it, I want you to get one story, and then I hope the second time you read it, and once you realize what's really going on, you get a whole different story.
Yeah, and that's like what I was saying, that the level of craft that you put into that goes so beyond like some asshole just looking at a few pages and being like, 2 out of 5.
Sure.
And I feel like that's always the disconnect. And again, that's something with your book, like just like, I feel like you can see like from a craft perspective when you're like, oh, this person like gave a shit. Like there's a lot in here that was like, in just like from the way like dialogue is like crafted and stuff, like, because you read stuff and sometimes you can tell it's a little phoned in. And if it's not, well, you think that, but there is like, I think when you're kind of a little more hyper aware as someone who's also creating, like, there's always that. But that's one of the things that just bothers me, the absence of noticing craft, even when people may not like the content.
Sure.
And not that you need to go out of your way to find compliments, but exactly what you said, like, they'll never know how hard you worked on that or what they really went into it.
That's what I had to prepare myself for. I was like, no matter what happens, like there's going to be somebody somewhere who hates this book just to be a dick. Like they're not going to hate it because they hate it. Like, and granted, there may have been people who read it who are like, this book's is garbage, and that's fine. Like I can live with that. But I had to kind of accept the fact that there were going to be people who are just like, this book is garbage because I don't do anything with my life, so I'm going to be horrible to somebody who tried. You know what I mean?
That's the whole, like, that's the like dark side of people's like anger and criticism. And I talk, a lot of my friends have been very, very successful, and I'm so happy to see them, but like to see the shit people will say is like absurd. And like how far they'll dig to like find excuses to like try to tear you down. And I feel like Twitter has taken this all to like the next level because it's like so much easier for them to just send something shot right at you. And you'll probably see it, let's be real, unless you're like so famous that it's just a wall and you can't even see. But like people like low tier like creators like me, like, yeah, I'll see your fucking tweet, like, and have to block you, and you will get that fired shot in there. Like, so like good on you. And then if you engage, it's like, okay, well, now you're on a slippery slope.
Right, where they kind of suck you into like the quicksand of their negativity, you know?
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, it's funny because I feel like I'm so much better at talking about this than executing in some sense. But as I said, this has really been the year for me where, like, I still look at, like, reviews of my work, and when I see something that's, like, really negative or, like, pointed, it will always sting, but, like, I can just quickly, like, forget and move past. And, I mean, if anything, also try to mine, like, the source of the criticism, because I feel like the stuff that hurts the most is the stuff that's kind of true. Sure. And you learn that as an artist, and it's painful, but, like, sometimes you do fuck up. Sometimes you should have paid attention to something a little more, but I think there's a lot of, like, discipline and learning to tell the good from the bad, even when the good is negative.
Sure, and let's, this kind of segues well into how you got into Five Ghosts, because of course when you have your own creator, own content, where you have so much control over what happens and pacing and what has to be in there and what points need to be made and all that. So you have that extra level of control, so you can kind of nurture it on a level that maybe you have to be a little more versed for on that bigger level. So going into Five Ghosts, how many books had you written at that point?
It's horrifying because, like, I feel like while I'm very proud of what we achieved with Five Ghosts, like, well, and to not make this like my therapy session, but I feel like the one thing that I still think about, and I remember the dude who tweeted it and will probably for the rest of his life, like, Five goes very largely beyond, like, the book at Arcana and some other pitch stuff, was the first, like, quote, real, like, comic I put out, and especially the first serialized comic, and still, like, I mean, it has some cracks in it. Like, I look at it now and think, oh, well, maybe we could have done this a little differently, but largely I feel like it was very successful in what we were trying to do, and work that kind of took me to the next place where I wanted to be. But one person was like, they were, like, talking, and someone's like, oh, well, I really like this new Five Ghosts book, and the guy was like, reads really amateurish to me. And I mean, that feels like a really innocuous comment, but to me, it, like, really got in my head, like, oh, fuck, and, like, people tell, like, I'm a new writer, like, that I don't have tons of work, and then I was, like, trying to validate, like, well, I mean, it is, like, really one of my first books, so, like, he's not wrong, and that just fucked me up, and I know it was a dude trying to break into comics was also, like, a journalist, and, like, I don't know, I'm still just, like, I know it came out of a kind of dickish place from that, but it just, like, really got into my head, and I still think about it when I see this guy talking, and I know he doesn't like my stuff, but I feel like the fact there was almost, like, some truth in it, and I felt like I was still kind of faking it a little bit, that, like, it really shook me a tad, but now I went off on that same tangent of my neuroses. Well, so, if you want to fuck me up, say my work reads amateurish. But no, it was really just the, like, same process of me working with the artist Chris Mooneyham, who co-created the book, and we were trying to do another thing for Arcana, actually. The book I had done for Arcana was the first, like, book I really finished, and I learned so much from doing it, and I feel like I definitely, like, did it in a pretty rugged way, and God bless the artist for, like, working, like, on back end and really, like, putting effort in when I was still figuring shit out. But and quick aside, that's the kind of thing where, like, you only learn this by doing it. Like, if I hadn't, like, sucked it up and done that Arcana book that I, like, mostly financed myself and, like, and kind of suffered through a bit and wasn't glamorous, but did it because I wanted to do it, I would never have gotten to Five Ghosts. So I will never downplay, like, any, like, step I've taken, like in anything. Like, it's part of the process. I feel like every writer in comics has that same kind of story of, like, yeah, things sucked. I was probably really bad at it, but I worked hard and stuck through. But Five Ghosts just happened really organically, which and it is really the point where, like, I feel like to this day, like, there's really only, like, 5 places to actively publish comics, especially, like, creator-owned comics. And they all have their nuances. They're all different. And Image is definitely, like, kind of still, like, the, like, hottest, most premier place. And, like, I had sent every, like, thing I was ever developing to them. I really want it to be there, but like I kept getting stuff rejected, and it really was like bumming me out a bit. And finally with Five Ghosts, it was the kind of thing where we made the 5-page like pitch of it, and it's the first 5 pages of the book. It was just one of those things where like we both just understood what the project was so quickly. Like it just like clicked so organically. And like comics, I feel like is one of those things where you can write something and talk about it with your collaborators, but it's not till you see those pages that you get what it is. And I think Chris really just brought like such a great vision and style to it that the minute I saw that, it really just funneled back in and inspired me to like understand how we should pace the book and what kind of basically like the pacing and the action stuff that you do as the writer that gets converted to art. It really just helped to see it. But we sent that 5-page pitch around and everyone rejected it. And I was just so bummed because I was like, well, I honestly feel like this is the best thing I can humanly make right now. So we're going to do this book. So we did a Kickstarter for the first issue and ended up self-publishing the first issue. And then like a year later, like at New York Comic Con, we managed to get like on a list on Bleeding Cool of like cool things to check out at New York Comic Con. And this was New York Comic Con 2012, and we actually sold out of all the books that we printed, which was highly irregular. Like I had been doing Comic Cons for like 3 years at this point and never sold anything, and just kind of knew like I was just someone who was there and people would maybe look at my stuff. So I remember being like,
kind of flabbergasted almost.
Yeah, but also horrified that I was going to have to spend more money to make more books because even selling them at $5, we were still taking a loss on the books and the printing. But thankfully, someone picked up the book at the show and gave it to Eric from Image, Eric Stevenson. And then like a month later, he randomly emailed me. It was like, oh, hey, I got this from so-and-so. I don't like to put that person under the gum, but they did the nicest thing humans ever done for me. And he's like, would you be interested in doing it at Image? And that was, and I hate over romanticizing it, but like, I feel like in most people's lives, it's very hard to pin down exactly where something changed your life. But for me, that was the exact moment my life changed. Like I would not be writing comics professionally. I would not have ever done any of the stuff I did if that did not happen. So it's still very surreal for me to be like, oh, like literally getting that email changed my life. And, yeah, that was just basically how it went. And it was just like learning as we went because like we had never done, a monthly comic before. Like Divine Intervention was only like 65 pages and kind of almost paced out like a screenplay in a lot of ways. And I'm a big craft nerd, but I feel like comics are such a unique beast, especially like monthly 20-page comics. And, with Five Ghosts, we just kind of winged it and like we really like cared about what we were doing. We focused and we didn't have any editors or anyone like that. Like Image is completely like they publish what you send them. And that's why we remain like ever thankful that it resonates with people and they like it because it's a very true vision on our part. And I think it was just like, again, the combination of having content we were really excited about, like me really liking Chris's work, like getting along well as collaborators, and then Lauren Affey, our colorist who joined us on the second issue, really getting the book and giving it a distinct look where it just kind of worked and we just rolled with it. I know that's a weird amorphous answer, but it's just one of those things like, and I feel like as a creative person, you can never control when that's going to happen, and you have to just kind of learn to seize those moments because I've had stuff where I was like, oh, this will be it. This is going to be great. And then it doesn't really come together. And it's just like, oh, well, back on the horse and try again.
Sure. Well, let me throw this in here too right now. One thing that I always appreciated about my experiences with you, I felt like leaving San Diego that first time, I felt like you and Nick were like my only friends in the comic business. I was like, oh, awesome. I got friends now and like in this business and this is cool. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you remember, but I probably if I think, like I said, going into it, I think that I just kind of sat there for like the first half of the signing and didn't say much, where you were like living it up, and I was like, you know what, this guy has the right idea about this. Like, he's here having fun, so I tried to get in that mode too. But
and I feel like that only came from having done so many shows before, where I know if I'm not having fun, no one's gonna come by and suddenly get it. And also having my brother there, I think like gave it a nicer vibe. And
sure.
And I'm glad you did, man. Like I said, I feel like it's just like, you make what you can of it, you know, like, and the funny thing is signings are still exactly like that. Like, it's still like, oh, no one's really going to care, so you better find a way to have a good time there until feel
somebody
like
does.
Yeah.
Well, and what I appreciated about you is right when all this Five Ghost stuff was starting to take off for you and you're getting this buzz, I remember you sent me because I was going to pitch some stuff to Image too. And you sent me all this pitch stuff, and you really went out of your way. You're like, absolutely, man, send me something.
Oh, you read the John Truby book, right?
Yeah. What is that? What was that book called?
It's called The Anatomy of Story. Like,
yes,
that is like my shit. Like, I love it so much, and I can't ever like. I recommend it to so many people, and it makes me so happy you actually read it. Because I remember we talked about it for a minute too. Like, did you liked it, right? It worked pretty.
It'll change writing for you. Like, if you read it and you get it, and you try to use it, like, I mean,
dude, what's insane about it is I feel like right now, like literally, like this month, it's finally starting to really click for me. Like, and I've been reading it since before Five Ghosts for like 4 years, and like. I really feel like that stuff is so potent and so true, and it's not like magic answer stuff, but just to even be thinking about that stuff, and it's really amazing theory, because so many people try to like tell you this is the answer, like, oh, it's all about 3-act structure, but I cannot say enough good stuff about that book, and again, it warms my fucking heart that you read it and dug it, because no one ever reads it because they think I'm trying to tell them how to write, but it's just like,
well, I never write anything to the 3-act structure. Like, I don't, I to be honest with you, like, I don't at all. Like, I write, I mean, I guess I can't.
Well,
I guess
especially the way like it's like prescribed from Hollywood, where it's very mechanical. Like you clearly as a writer understand how stories work with beginning, middle, and end, but you don't need that like formula to be like, okay, and now's when someone dies, and now's when the hero wakes up. Like,
sure. Well, and if you remember, like my stuff is like very like I don't really write anything that's happy. So there is like no structure. Like, there's no like cookie cutter like, oh, hey, here's the happy part where the good stuff happens.
Yeah, right, yeah. Like when you go to even when a kid goes to the movies, they're like, oh, I know this is how this is going to go, because that structure is just so overdone.
You know, Mark Polton, he told me when he read my book, he's like, it might not be a bad idea if somebody lives. Because I literally killed everybody in the entire book, and like when I was first writing it, everybody died. It was just like die, and it was probably like the book is depressing to begin with, so it was probably just insanely depressing. And I did another project with this guy named Sean Forney called Scarlet Huntress the Hollow, and he's been writing like this character for a while, and I kind of did a guest writing spot in one of his books. And even it, like, I felt like reading it after he had finished the art and all that, and reading it how he had done his thing with it. I kind of felt like maybe he was kind of leery of pushing it as far as I wanted to push it, because I'm like let's have there's a lot of werewolves and stuff in it, and I was like, let's have a werewolf that's a baby that's halfway between human and wolf. Crucified with his guts hanging out.
And he was like, yeah, we'll get to some of that.
It's all like shadowed out. But the reason I did it, like, there was a reason for doing that, because what had to happen to get the character from point A to point B, and to have that growth and that change, like, to where she was willing to work with somebody she had not considered working with before. Like, it had to be so horrible that she was willing to be, the enemy of my enemy kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
And exactly what, like, the thing that makes it so hard, especially when you're writing like stuff to be consumed by people who you can never protect their sensibilities. Like,
sure.
You have to like stand by your stuff, right? Like, and I feel like I've learned that because there's definitely been times when I've almost like self-censored based on how I thought my work was going to be perceived, and you always regret it. It's always like, oh, well, fuck it. I should have just done what I want. And I feel like that's that writing advice that people say, like, which is a cornier way to say it, but just as true. But like, don't write like your mom is going to read it. Because, right. Like, no, you write, like, it should be authentic to the story, to the characters. And, like, if you're writing something with horrific shit, there's going to be horrific shit. And I feel like, especially now with so much, like, weird, like, and I'm going to sound like a dick here and trying not to, but, like, I am a pretty, like, worldly, socially conscious person. But there is stuff I've written where the characters are supposed to be horrible people who do not reflect my views or any of my beliefs. And when people start ascribing the views of an awful fucking character onto you and saying, like, you can't do this, or you can't show guts, or you can't show, like someone killing a baby or anything like that. It's like, it's fiction. This is what it's for. Like, step outside your space for a minute and separate the art from me. And also, like, I didn't put that in there for no reason. And right. I think it's really important for creative people to not self-censor based on, one, reader expectations or hang-ups, or two, like, I mean, just, you know what I mean? Just like to censor based on what people might think if it's really what you believe should be there. And I feel like that takes sometimes a little more guts, no pun intended, because you are always worried, especially in like an active community with like Twitter and stuff, like you don't want to offend anyone, but like, I mean, I feel like a lot of like learning how to deal with it is learning to say fuck it. And like, you're always going to have someone who's going to be like weird about your work. I mean, the number of people who have been like, Five Ghosts is racist or Five Ghosts is sexist, I'm just like amazed. I'm like, if you guys want to find that stuff, you can find it anywhere. Like, sorry that like, he sleeps with a woman in the first issue. Like, I'm not trying to say all women are objects or anything like that. You know, it's just like so.
Well, and the thing about that too is in the real world, like guys and girls sleep together like, randomly. Like they just randomly sleep together. Like,
and that's the crazy part, right? Like suddenly, like because you're telling a story and they know it was a choice you made, it comes under this microscope of like, oh, what is the agenda here? It's like, well, I mean, I didn't invent sex, or like,
yeah, sure,
I mean, I wish I did. Let's be real, but
yeah, but I did the same thing that 9 billion other people have done and participated. Like, you know, it is what it is, and the PC nature of everything is just so ridiculous. Like everybody gets their feelings hurt.
It's that whole thing where it's like it comes from a good place, but that gets taken so far. And I am a very like big advocate for social justice, for many like different like hot topics, like more on the side of like probably the people who are criticizing, and that's what like makes me so crazy. It's like, yo, like just because I wrote a character like who doesn't share my views, don't try to tell me who I am, because you don't know what I actually believe. And I'm sorry that my work doesn't always have to represent who I am. And I was just talking to Colin Bunn about this the other weekend, and he's a super nice dude and super supportive, and he's written a lot of very dark books and like gets that stuff lobbed at him. He's like, Jesus Christ, when could we like, I mean, not putting words in Colin's mouth, Colin did not say that, but I feel like, Jesus Christ, when did we stop learning how to separate like fiction from reality?
And I want to be clear, like, I would never, ever, ever be cool with just being a dick to somebody for no reason, or like, you know, picking at somebody who may have, you know, I would never be okay with hating somebody because of their race, or I would never be okay with hating somebody because of their sexuality, those kind of things. But I think, like, for the sake of story writing, you can't write a book of where everybody is Frank.
Yeah, right.
You can't write a book where
and even if I wanted to, like, if I had something to say and wrote a character who was racist, like, if I was like, and I have not, I mean, but I know people who have, and like, yeah, that person's gonna be unlikable and shitty and terrible and probably say some hurtful shit, but that's not the writer doing that. I mean, I feel like I watch, like, I mean, look at Tarantino, right? Like, I feel like there are a huge amount of people who are just offended by everything he does and like what his characters do, but like it works within the framework of the story. And I feel like he's really, there's an excellent podcast between him and Bret Easton Ellis on, Bret Easton Ellis's that I would highly recommend listening to if anyone thinks this is an interesting point of conversation, just the like idea of like self-censoring based on public perception, where they really go into it. Obviously, they're both pretty provocative writers who write about a lot of like edgy things, and hearing how they deal with it was so liberating to me. Like, of them just being like, fuck you, like, was like so great to hear. Like, and I mean, they have obviously more clout than me, but that's where I've really tried to get with my headspace. Like, maybe if like my editor said like, yo, you can't do this, okay, that person's in a position to actually edit my work. But if a fan says it, like, I mean, I hate the word fan, but a reader, someone who read my work, like, I'm not going to debate you. Like, I made my choice. My work says what it says. Like, you can choose to be offended, you can choose to be angry, but that's not, you can't, like, I'm not going to talk to you about that. Like, sure. Like, you can not like my work, you can fucking hate it. And like, and I always say, like, go ahead, tweet at me, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not going to engage you. Like, so like, it's your business, but I just hate when people try to take an active role and make it their job to change the way someone else thinks. Like, never gonna happen. Even with legitimately shitty people, you won't change how they think. So don't come at a writer because you're not happy with the choice they made in their fiction.
Well, let me ask you this.
Well,
too.
that is now really like piling the soapboxes instead.
Well, let me ask you about this though, because this brings up an interesting point. Do you agree that in a civilized society where everybody has like the right to be like, for instance, if I write something, or I participate in something, or I am something, or I have an opinion and it pisses somebody off, they have the right not to deal with me. You know what I mean? They have the right to be like, hey man, I just can't support you or what you're doing. Like, you know, of course, we were talking earlier, I got this barbecue eatery, and if somebody doesn't like something that I stand for, they have the right not to do business with me. You know what I'm saying? But don't I have the right to have my opinion and to push my vision and to do these things, as long as I'm being respectful to other people? You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
and I feel like that's the thing. As long as you're not actively encroaching on someone or their civil liberties, yeah, I mean, that's being a human being. And like, I feel like 9 times out of 10, like, if someone is going at someone on Twitter, I just want to be like, what is your end game? What is the perfect world you envision? Like, what do you want? Like, your thing is to silence them. So you're like bullying in reverse. And that's why I think it becomes such a like crazy environment where everyone's concerned about doing the right thing, but like, in some of the people who just like harp on every endless bit of drama that comes up, like, I'm like, man, what is gonna finally make them happy? Like, what is what they want? And a lot of times, like, they don't have that. They just want the drama to get caught up in, or like they just want to be acknowledged, and that's their platform. And I feel like I'm a pretty chill person these days. Like, I mean, my friends will probably make fun of me for saying that, but like, I just get caught up because I don't believe anyone can tell you how to be. Like, and yeah, like, you can't, like, people aren't going to always agree with you, but like, again, I have like, I don't know, I don't think anyone has to be sanctioned by another human being to be validated. And as a creative person, like, that's all you get. Like, it's just like suddenly you have to explain everything to yourself. And like, sometimes it's like, yeah, man, I just like fucking don't like the taste of Mountain Dew. Sorry. Like, I'm not throwing a judgment call on fucking Mountain Dew when I say I don't like it. Like,
sure.
And it's like that's a silly example, but that's like how it is. Like, suddenly you'll get like, well, fuck you, man. You don't know what goes into making Mountain Dew, or my grandpa like loved Mountain Dew. And when you say that, you disrespect him. It's like, yo, learn to step outside of your like subjective opinion for a minute. Like, it's okay for people to be different.
Well, we had this whole thing here in Indiana. Indiana's a weird place, man. It's like, it's definitely the North. It's not the South, but it definitely has like a lot of stereotypical South stuff going on in it. Like for instance, there's this huge thing with like gay and lesbian rights and stuff, and how like the governor has signed like.
Oh yeah, they're one of the states where they actually said like, oh, you can refuse like.
Well, sure, but the problem with this is, and I'll bring this back around. You have to trust me here where we're going. The problem is this really all started over. I think it was a bakery that refused.
The dude in Florida, right? Wasn't it a bakery in Florida, or was it in Indiana?
This happened in Indiana. There may have been another one in Florida, but here in Indiana, there was a bakery that refused to make a cake for a gay wedding. Okay, so the people who were trying to get married, and God bless you, man. If you're gay and you want to get married, I'm all for you being happy. Like, do whatever makes you happy. Like, if it doesn't affect, like I said, if you're not encroaching on what makes me happy, then you do what you do it, man. By God, get married and have a great life. But that's my viewpoint. But they. They made this big deal and they and maybe they should have, I don't know, but they made this big deal, and then it became like a legal issue of like, well, we're being discriminated against, blah blah blah. And I think that people forget the anti-discrimination laws protect you from government discrimination. Like, a private citizen in a private business has the right to tell you no. Like, I can walk into a business and the baker would be like, you know what, dude, you're too fat, man. I'm not gonna feed you. You're too fat. And they have the right to do that because they're a private entity. As long as they're not accepting government money, like, they have the right to do as they please with their business. But anyway, there was, people, they brought it out and people decided they didn't want to do business with these people, so they went out of business, and that's how the free market works, right? Like, yeah. You don't want to do business with them because they're dicks, and you don't like how they operate, so you're not going to do business with them. But everybody, like, it's become this whole like hate thing here. Like, it's like people who, it's gay people and people who support gay people hate people who don't support gay people. You know what I mean? So it becomes like, it's like two factions of people that hate each other and have no respect for where the other people are coming from.
And I feel like that's why we're in such like a dangerous, not to get so like philosophical, dangerous sociological time where like there's just so much hate from even when people want like progress, like just the animosity that comes back and forth from every party, and that's just like it's so easy for both sides to become so venomous over so many things. Do you get what I'm saying at all? It's just like,
no, absolutely.
It's like, I feel like we've all forgotten just that basic, like, oh, be like okay to each other. And if you have like a disagreement, like find the like logic and the reason behind it. Like, not like, don't just hit the like fucking nuclear option, like on either side of any argument. And I don't know why things have, I mean, every issue has its nuances, but I just feel like in basic one-on-one arguing with people, like about anything now, it's just so intense. Like whether it's about like if you just had a good sandwich or not, and that scares the shit out of me.
But and I just like to say this for the record. I do own a barbecue company, and if you're gay and you want to get married and you need somebody to cater that, please call me, because I will cater you. Like, and I'll cater you right. I will give you the best service I could possibly give you. So, if there are other barbecue places that don't feel okay with that, send your customers to me. I'd love to do it. So,
this is an organic business plug there.
Like I did that. But now, actually, we only got about 7 minutes because I have to keep this in about an hour, and we did not get to nearly as much stuff as I wanted to.
It was a good conversation, so I can't complain.
Well, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, right on air, and I'm gonna try and get you to commit to coming back here in the very near future, so we can get to because I really want to find out about how you got in with Dark Horse and Marvel and DC and what that whole experience was like. So I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to ask you if you'll come back.
Yeah, anytime, man. I am more than happy to talk about any of this stuff. It's weirdly get less of a chance to talk about it in an organic way than you think. So, so anytime, gauntlet rethrown.
Well, I kind of feel like this is probably the logical endpoint, if you will. Again, just if you're out there and you're interested in finding out more information about Frank, where can they find you, Frank?
So my Twitter, I'm pretty active on Twitter, and I talk a lot about what I'm working on there and when books are coming out. And my Twitter handle is @Atlas Incognita, so ATLASINCOGNITA, which is so fucking hard for people to hear when I say it out loud most of the time. But also my website is atlasincognita.com. But if you Google either my name or, obviously, as douchey as it sounds, Five Ghosts, a lot of times you'll find those links quickly. And just in the workspace right now, I'm currently writing a Deja Thoris comic for Dynamite, which I'm having a great experience on and I'm really proud of. So you can get, I think the first 4 issues are out right now. Then I have a new book called The Revisionist that is another creator-owned project that I'm super passionate about and honestly feels so much like Five Ghosts, how we kind of made it organically, and it was basically the comic we would have made if we made it in our garage. And that'll be out June 1st in comic shops, and I'm super proud of that as well. But yeah, like I stay pretty active online, so Twitter is the best place to really catch me.
Well, great. Sounds good. And I appreciate you coming in. And one thing I was trying to get to, and we got kind of sidetracked, the thing that I appreciated most about you, again, is when you had all that going on with Five Ghosts. This is just to kind of speak to the kind of guy that you are to people. You really went out of your way, like to give me stuff to set my pitches up with, and you even offered to pitch my book for me to Image. So. And that really just always stuck with me as to the kind of guy that you are. So, yeah, I mean, you guys check this guy out.
Thanks. Well, and truly, man, I feel like no one gets anything like, especially in the arts, like perfectly out of the ether. As I said, someone picked up my book at show and was nice enough to pay it forward like that. And that's the reason I have a career. So I'm always very, like, especially for stuff I like and people I like. If I don't like something, I'll find a nice way to see myself out of that, and hopefully give something meaningful. But like, honestly, I feel like just, that goes back to just everything. Like, fucking treat people how you want to be treated. I won't like, I won't get too high in that, but you know what I mean? Like, in such like a small, like, industry, like, it's so easy to be a dickhead and not like, watch out for anything. But I'm so happy that a lot of my close friends are like that and really like support each other, and like that's how I always want to be. Like, I want to be excited about the stuff my friends are doing, be excited about cool work I see, and I always say I'd rather see people I like and stuff I believe in succeed than just like some random asshole who is going to be mean to people and maybe has a good book but is like a shitty person.
Sure. Well, all right. Well, that'll wrap it up for us. Again, make sure you check out Frank on Twitter. Check out his website. And until next time, this is